and I'm the chair of the Boston City Council Committee on Ways and Means. Today is May 7, 2025. It is 9:31 a.m. In accordance with Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2025, modifying certain requirements of the open meeting law and relieving public bodies of certain requirements, including the requirement that public bodies conduct its meetings in a public place that is open and physically accessible to the public, the City Council will be conducting this hearing virtually via Zoom. This hearing is being recorded. It is also being live streamed at boston.gov/city-council-TV and broadcast on Xfinity Channel 8, RCN Channel 82, and Fios Channel 964. Written comments may be sent to the committee email at ccc.wm@boston.gov and will be made part of the record and available to all councilors. Public testimony will be taken at the end of this hearing. Individuals will be called on in the order in which they signed up. Will have 2 minutes to testify. If you wish to sign up for public testimony and have not done so, please email our Central Staff Liaison, Karishma Chauhan, at karishma.chouhan@boston.gov for the Zoom link, and your name will be added to the list. Today's hearing is on docket number 0940. Message in order for your approval in order to reduce the FY25 appropriation for the reserve for collective bargaining by $33,262,466 to provide funding for the Boston Public Schools for the FY26 impact of increases contained within the collective bargaining agreement between the Boston School Committee and the Boston Teachers Union. Docket number 0941. Message in order, a supplemental appropriation order for the Boston Public Schools for FY25 in the amount of $33,262,460 to cover the impact of FY25 cost items contained within the collective bargaining agreement between the Boston School Committee and the Boston Teachers Union. The term of the contract is September 1st, 2024 through August 30th, 2027. The major provisions of the contract include general wage increases of 2.5%, 2%, and 2% in September of 2024, 2025, and 2026. The paraprofessionals and ABAs will also receive market rate adjustments. These matters were sponsored by Mayor Michelle Wu and referred to the committee on April 30th, 2025. Today, I'm joined by my council colleagues in order of arrival, Council President Louis Jen, Council Murphy, and Council Flint. I would now like to turn it over to today's panelists to introduce themselves and for their presentation. The floor is now yours.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Lou Mandarini for the administration. Good morning to all the other councilors too. Thanks for the opportunity to testify today. So we have, I just will give a brief introduction about a couple of the things that we're very happy about from the standpoint of the administration in this contract, and leave time for questions and comments as we move. So I think two things that I'll highlight here. This contract very much builds on work we started doing in the last BTU contract that we reached in June of 2022. And this is work relative to making the district a fully inclusive district where students with special needs can get resources in many more schools. So if the contract in 2022 was largely about removing antedated language from the BTU contract, this contract was about building the new system and providing the supports and providing the staffing that will help us move forward. So from the standpoint of collective bargaining, we like to look down the line, at what, how many contracts it's going to take for us to achieve something we want to achieve, and have a continuum where, we do some work and then we move forward to the next contract and do more work. So this is a pretty good example of that. And then the other major advent that I'll lift up from the standpoint of the administration is lifting up our lowest wage workers. As you know, from the city side, this has been a key prerogative in this round of bargaining to target those workers that are making $60,000 or less. This is a very significant part of the workforce. So in this instance, that took the form of significant increases for paraprofessionals, ABA specialists, family liaisons, and folks on the lower end of the spectrum. So these folks are seeing very significant increases that make their wages much more competitive. This is both with respect to the inclusion work that we're rolling out and the staffing associated with it, the ability to retain and recruit paraprofessionals and have them have a salary that lets them support themselves and their families and live in the city is a key prerogative for us. So having done that now in the largest collective bargaining agreement that we have in the city of Boston, we've moved forward on the policy of lifting up our lowest wage workers. So those are the two things I'll highlight at the top and reserve other time for questions, comments, and things from the counselors. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll now go to my council colleagues in order of arrival for first round of questions. But I also just want to start off and say happy Teacher Appreciation Week for any teachers that are watching. And it is fitting that the City Council is taking this up in the Teachers Appreciation Week. The floor is now Council President Louis Jen. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chair, and good morning to everyone. Happy to be with all of you. Like this chair said, happy Teacher Appreciation Week. I want to thank Lou and David and the entire team for their work, and I also just want to thank BTU. I know this contract was one longer than making, and I know it's one that the teachers are very happy about. Para parity for our paraprofessionals is really important, and I'm glad to see the strides that this contract has made here for our paras, who are some of our lowest paid employees. And Lou, you know that we've a big focus of my office and of ours on the City Council has been ensuring that our lowest paid workers are able to work and live in the city, as you highlighted and underlined, and are able to do their work with dignity. And there's no better way to do that than and how we are able to compensate our employees. So I just want to thank you for this contract. I want to thank Mr. Chair for shepherding this through, and also the central staff. I know it's a Wednesday before a council meeting. We don't usually have hearings, but I think it's just an example of how important it is to us that we get this through, and I'm excited to be voting in support of this. Again, want to thank everyone who worked so diligently on this. I don't have any questions, but I'm just grateful that we're able to push and move this forward. Thank you.
Brian, you're on mute.
Yes. Thank you for that, Councilor Flynn. Thank you, Council President. Just want to acknowledge that we've been joined by Councilor Fitzgerald and also the Vice Chair of the committee, Councilor Pepin. The chair now recognizes Councilor Murphy. Councilor, you have the floor.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Just happy to be on in support, and want to thank the union for advocating, all the teachers for the work you do, and the staff. And Lou, you mentioned what I know when we talked about it when they were in front of us. We need to make sure that we're finally paying our paras the wage they deserve. So this increase is long overdue, but great to see it come, especially with the increase of expectations they're having as we roll out full inclusion across the district. A lot of that pressure is being put onto our paraprofessionals. So glad to see that we'll be supporting them financially this time around, but always room to do more. And I think we'll just continue to advocate for that and watch closely what how we can continue to support that. But driving, so just wanted to hop on and make sure that you were aware I'm in support of this, and glad that we can get this through. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Murphy. The chair now recognizes Councilor Flynn. Councilor, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you to the administration team that is here. I also want to say that I was a proud member of the BTU at one time as a substitute school teacher. Know the important, critical role paras play, substitute teachers play, certainly all our teachers as well. But this is an issue I've focused on for 7 years to ensure that our paras are paid a decent wage. I think this is incredibly important. David, maybe a question for you or to Jim. Every year I always support the COLA, and I'm supporting this budget, obviously. Every year, this contract, every year the retirees come seeking a cost of living increase, and I always actually testify in person before the retirement board. Any particular language in here as it relates to dignity and retirement for BTU members, for any BPS employees. Just something, just a question I'm concerned with. Want to ask you, are we supporting our BTU workers to ensure that they have dignity in retirement? David, I think you're on mute.
Sorry,
Yeah.
didn't realize I was on mute then. So I think the majority of the benefits in this contract are dealing with actively employed members. I will say the rates and differentials in this proposal do apply to the Teachers Union Health and Welfare Fund payments that we make to support additional benefits for members, which I believe includes retirees as well. So there is a little bit of a benefit there, but this does not directly impact the retirement benefits of retirees.
Okay. What's the latest in terms of retirement benefits, COLA, for our city workers? Jim, maybe you might want to weigh in also. But is there any language, anything unique about COLA increases and any particular challenges we see? This is an issue that's important to me. I not only write a letter in support of the COLA, but I actually probably the only city council that testifies in person also. So I advocate for our city workers. But anything unique in this contract, or anything unique that you see about retirement?
Yeah, I'm not sure about how it may or may not be addressed in the PTU contract, but in terms of the retirement system, it's an annual evaluation on the ability to increase the COLA on the COLA base. It would apply to every member of it's a multi-employer retirement system, the Boston retirement system, so it would apply to everybody, but it's something that's evaluated on an annual basis. There are some statutory caps on it, but it's and sometimes there's been legislative relief for changes. Obviously, it's an opt-in thing, but as far as I know, it's pretty standard to evaluate the execution of the COLA and even look at the COLA base as well.
Thank you, Jim. As you probably know, I represent District 2, and I was down at the Josiah Quincy School over the weekend. Continue to hear from residents, concerned residents, parents, and students asking me about the gymnasium as well. As you know, I've met with the superintendent and we've did a walkthrough of the school gymnasium. We've talked at length about it, but in the middle of the gymnasium is kind of like a major divider. And I know this is unrelated to the contract at BTU, but since I have you here on this call, I wanted to advocate for my constituents. They think they deserve an update to ensure students with disabilities are also included and have equal access to a gymnasium that's safe. And I agree with them. I think the gymnasium currently is obsolete. It's old, and I'm looking for an update and support to fix what's broken, but also to advocate for a new gymnasium at Josiah Quincy School. I think my constituents, I think these young students deserve it. And I've asked the superintendent many times, and she wants to do it, but she just doesn't have the money to do it. Is this something that you are considering, David or Jim? Or that's important.
Yeah, I know we are definitely prioritizing making the repairs that are needed to the gym in the short term right away. I know there's then a larger conversation about a potential capital project for a bigger improvement.
Yeah, but in the meantime, though, David, it's the kids in my district that want to play sports, and students with disabilities don't really have the great ability like other wealthier schools do. They don't have that ability. So it's frustrating to me because I I see my constituents not being able to play sports at a gymnasium, and other schools have beautiful gymnasiums, and my students don't at Josiah Quincy, the elementary school. So that's important to my constituents. They're just asking for a little bit of fairness. That's all they're asking for.
Yeah. Thank you for your continued advocacy, Council.
Okay. Thank you, David. Thank you, Jim. Mr. Chair, I'm going to support this contract proudly. I want to say thank you to the Boston Teachers Union. I committed to supporting this contract. Thank you.
Thank you, Council Flynn. And Lou, I saw that you had your hand raised. I didn't know if you had anything to add.
Yeah, I just wanted to add a little more to the councilor's question about the COLA base. So the COLA base is not a subject of bargaining. Our retirement system is it's entirely regulated by PERAC, a state agency. So not only does the COLA base relate to all of our collective bargaining agreements across the city and the agencies, but we cannot agree to things in a collective bargaining agreement that would bind the retirement board on anything that we do. So I just wanted to provide a little more color on that. Across all of the bargaining units in the city, it's not a subject of bargaining.
No, I understand that, Lou.
Okay.
I understand that. That's why I testify in person every year to the city retirement board. That's why I send a letter every year to the retirement board. But I want to make sure that our city employees are treated with respect as it relates to COLA. And this is the opportunity I have to highlight some of these issues, whether it impacts the contract or not. I take that opportunity to advocate for what I believe in.
Appreciate that. Just trying to be helpful, Counselor. Sorry.
Thank you, Lou. Thank you, Council Flynn. I just want to acknowledge that Council Weber has joined us. The chair recognizes Council Fitzgerald. Councilor, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Just want to say how fitting it is as today I look forward to later on in the council meeting putting forth the resolution recognizing National Teacher Week, and we appreciate all our teachers. So it's great to be able to support this contract today. We're moving in the right direction with it. I mean, of course, I believe teaching is the most important job really we have for the future of this city and for our youth. So I'd love to see, I love that we focused on the lower workers, and I think that's a great place to start. In the future, I'd love to see teachers get paid more so we attract the best for our kids. So happy with the progress being made and happy to be here today on National Teacher Week. So thank you.
Thank you, Council Fitzgerald. I want to acknowledge that we have been joined by Council Braden. Council Pepin, the floor is now yours.
Hey, good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, also just very grateful that we get to vote on this today, where we are honoring our teachers, and it's just something that I know that a lot of paraprofessionals and other staff at BPS have been asking for quite some time now. So I don't have any questions. I will be voting in favor of this today, just because I know that they deserve it. And yeah, just thank you so much, Lou, for providing this information, and thank you, Mr. Chair, for providing the time before the council meeting.
Thank you, Council Pepin. The chair recognizes Council Weber. Council, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Chair. Yeah, I guess so. In terms of, the superintendent's talked about the inclusion model, and there's been concerns about staffing. Is there anything in the CBA that would address concerns about how we're going to, have enough staffing to handle special needs, language learning issues, and in our classrooms? Thanks.
Yes, thank you, Councilor Weber. Support for students with disabilities was actually one of the core components of this agreement. As Lou mentioned earlier, when we did our last contract with the BTU, we sort of took apart the previous framework that we had been contractually agreed to with inclusion and set up a process for arriving at a new design. What this contract did was really solidify some rules of the road for making sure that there is the levels of staffing and support that teachers know they can rely on when they're working with students with disabilities. And so there are sort of two main ways we did that. The first was building in some levels of student need that sort of trigger additional staffing requirements. And the second was creating a new type of position, a specialized paraprofessional position that's paid more and receives more training to do some specialized work with students with disabilities. And we think the combination of the sort of rules of the road regulations we wrote into the contract around staffing and this new position in professional development will really combine to help us with sort of the work we're already doing and our teachers are already doing to build the system we need. So really excited about sort of the framework that was outlined in this agreement.
Okay, thanks a lot. And in terms of, can you just say, I'm sorry, I missed the beginning, but what the percentage increases at the sort of at the lower levels are?
Yes, so every member of the unit, which is teachers and people who are paid like teachers, like social workers and nurses, paraprofessionals and substitutes and ABAs, everyone is getting 2.5% in year one, 2% in year two, and 2% in year three. For paraprofessionals, then, over the life of this contract, they're getting an additional $5.50 an hour, primarily in year one, but split out over the 3 years. This is a more than 25% increase for many of our paras, especially those at the lower end of the pay scale, over the 3 years. And because a lot of it was front loaded, they're going to see retro pay for this year and really significant raise for next year. So we think this is a really big deal, and it moves the minimum para salary to $40,000. And we actually think there aren't very many paras at that minimum salary because that work, if you work in any extended day, if you have any experience or degrees, right, you get more pay in our system. So even that minimum, which we're really excited to raise, we think many of our paras will get paid significantly more than that.
Okay, and just last question, in terms of like the budget, I mean, so we've been given a proposal for BPS, like how does this impact that?
Yes. So for FY26, this reflects a 55.9, just a hair under, proposed increase for the FY26 budget. One thing I just want to note about that, we are also requesting an increase to FY25 because FY25 also did increase, which is in your memo. And so just also to note that while we're asking for close to $56 million more for next year, that only represents about $22.5 million more than of an increase from 25 to 26. Mm-hmm. The rest of that is really the FY25 increase that we just also need to continue into 26.
Okay, so just in terms of math, like, so I think it's 5.3 something billion. So we're with this we're going to add to that about 50, or should be.
That's right.
Or last year. Okay, I got it. Thank you very much. That's helpful. That's all the questions I have. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Council Weber. The chair recognizes Council Braden. Council, you have the floor.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've listened to my colleagues' questions. I think all my questions have been answered. I'm really pleased to support this budget. I'm especially pleased to see that our lower paid workers are going to get a better wage, a better salary. So that's very encouraging. And I did talk a little the other day about, career pathways and ways to develop those lower wage workers in advancing in the career in education so that ultimately they could become licensed teachers. So I'm glad that all of that infrastructure has been put in place. So to try and cultivate the talent we have so we don't have to go looking for new talent every few years. So thank you all, and thank you, Lou and David and Jim for your presentation this morning. That's all I had, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Council Braden. Again, I just want to thank everyone who worked on this contract. I do have a few questions. I'm going to start off with Council Weber's line of questioning. David, this is for you. I'm just confirming for like grades K through 6, that I'm reading correctly, that it is simply 9 students across multiple strands in one level. So if there are more than 9 high need students with IEPs in grade 2 in one school, then an extra staffer will be added. So it won't matter if those 9 students are all in one classroom or spread out across 4 classrooms. Is that correct?
That's right. We want to look at the grade level, look at the need in that level, and then we want to let the educators on the ground determine the best way to organize the students. So if they determine that the best thing to do is to put all the students in one class and co-teach, we don't think anyone actually will do that, but they might. They can do that. We didn't want to limit the teacher's ability to arrange the students in the way that saw best fit. So we just said, if you have the need in the grade level, you get dedicated staff to that grade.
Okay, and then for the upper schools, 7 to 12, the extra inclusion is on a class-by-class basis. How would we be able to project a high school class 6 months before the start of the school year?
It's a great question. I think we typically know a fair amount based on sort of how students are doing. If you have 45 students taking Algebra 1 this year, you're reasonably likely to have 40 students taking Algebra 2 next year, or it was probably Geometry to Algebra 2. It's been a while since I've been teaching math. So I think our schools can do reasonably good projections, but I think we are also committed to continuing to review the process. I think what we outlined in the contract establishes a minimum bar, but it doesn't mean we can't work together to exceed that bar. So I think that's really what we're focused on as we move into implementation of this agreement. And I think what we're finding at many of our high schools is we needed to codify the work that's actually happening. But a lot of our high schools are already implementing things that look very similar to this. And so it was just about making sure that it was sort of guaranteed to everyone in collaboration with the union, and the teachers knew it was something they could rely on because it was written into their contract.
All right, and then how do we ensure that students aren't placed out of a school to bypass hitting these staffing benchmarks in order to avoid having an extra teacher hired at a school? And then my question around inclusion would be, what are the estimated costs of ensuring inclusion reforms are met and followed through on?
Great question. I think, so the nice thing is, so placement decisions of students with IEPs are not some like central office comes in and determines things. It's individual school-based teams that are making the determination that include teachers, the COAS, school psychologists, and others. So, if a student may be flagged as needing an evaluation, even if that school is already at 8 kids or 9 kids, whatever it is, right? If the local school team determines that student needs an IEP and that triggers this language, then it triggers this language. That team meeting is the place where the determination is made. In terms of cost, I think we are confident that we can make this work inside the mayor's existing commitment to a 5-year, $50 million investment in inclusive practices and BPS. I think, we will continue to evaluate that year by year. So we are going to spend money to hire 18 additional staff for next year because the implementation, we agreed with the union basically because of the timing, we couldn't do full implementation of this language in this upcoming school year because we had already done a lot of the planning. And so we're hiring additional staff to work in the regions and push into schools and provide support for next year. And then the year after that is when we'll really be doing implementation. So I think as we come back to you in the fall and winter and spring over the course of next year, we'll be able to give you more information about what we're seeing and needs-wise across the district and what the final costs will end up being.
Thank you. And then diving a little bit deeper around that is the cost, right? There's a big emphasis on cost pay and workload in this contract. I might be, is it COSI? Sorry.
Yeah, it's coast, but don't worry
Coast.
about it.
All right. All coasts are supposed to have a caseload of 135 cases.
Yeah.
How many coasts have a caseload higher of that right now? And does this allocation account for any of the part-time clerks being hired for coasts? Or if they won't be hired for the coasts, do they get that higher salary?
Yes. So I'll go in reverse order there. Coasts do get payments if they are missing their clerk time. If we're like unable to hire a clerk for them or something, the coasts do get additional pay. We have scheduled every coast to meet their caseload, so to be under 135 for this upcoming year. That being said, right, we know there are issues that come up that sometimes mean we can't meet it. So one of the most common things we see is a school maybe has 150 kids with disabilities, and we assign them more than one coast. But the second coast in the school maybe goes on leave, or the position is vacant, and then suddenly that first coast is making sure that all the kids are getting their services, but they end up with 150 kids on their caseload. We do our best to avoid those situations, but we do, review them very closely with union leadership, and those coasts do often get a payment for a sort of settlement payment for the going over their caseload backs.
All right. And then I'm gonna just wrap these three questions, Max, them all at the same time. On page 4, under step placement and step advancement, subsection B, recruitment incentive, what will that encompass? How will determination be made in terms of what dates will receive a recruitment incentive? And then on page 4 and 5, how has the credit for prior work experience section changed from prior iterations of the CBA? And then on page 6, under athletic side letter, it states that BPS will review coaching compensation nationally and statewide and provide that info to BTU on or before May 2nd. Has that happened?
I'll have to double check with the team counselor. Apologize. I don't know where the status is of the coaching review. So I'll double check that for you.
Counselor, I can speak to you that. That's actually in process, and we anticipate, I think, having some results on that before the end of the school year. So that review is in process. It's happening. It's not the kind of thing that we could finish before we finish the contract. So I anticipate something in the next month and a half on that, or at least that's our plan.
And then for the recruitment incentive, I think, we've seen issues at times hiring teachers for specialized programs, right? So the example I'm thinking right now is we're going to be working to establish a new dual language Cape Verdean Creole program, right, at the Frederick as a part of this merger that's coming up. You can imagine that's a very specialized teacher skill set you need to find. And our hope and ideal is always that we can find that with existing staff in our community. But I think in cases where positions may be hard to find, we want to be able to offer teachers an incentive to come to the district and share their expertise with us and our students. And so having this language in the contract around the recruitment incentive allows the superintendent to designate certain hard to staff areas. And these are typically things with specific language needs or very specialized instructional needs. So you can imagine even some vocational positions or positions in sort of sciences and other areas where they're hard to staff that allows us to make some hiring changes. And I think the credit for prior work experience, Lou, I'm not sure if you know how much that changed.
Yeah, that speaks, I think, Counselor, that speaks to nurses. So essentially an ability to be able to recruit school nurses and retain them. The contract paves the way to give credit for prior service in other employment settings. So that's what that is.
Thank you. That is my time. What I'd like to do now, before I go back, I see Councilor Brady, you have your hand raised, but I'd like to give time for public testimony. You can testify either in person or via Zoom. If you would like to testify virtually, please sign up in advance using the link below. After you have signed up, you'll be provided with a hearing Zoom link. Please make sure you are signed into Zoom with the full name you signed up with to help us call on you appropriately. If you would like to testify in person, please sign up on the sheet near the chamber entrance. When your name is called to testify, please step forward, introduce yourself into the microphone, and participants will have 2 minutes to testify. I will now call on Eric Berg. If you are in the room, please raise your hand and we will promote you to a panelist, and then you'll be able to give your testimony. The chair now recognizes Eric Berg in the BTU. The floor is now yours.
There we go. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for scheduling this hearing on the morning of the meeting itself. We really appreciate it, and we appreciate the council's support of the BTU, of the Boston Public Schools, and really of expediting this process. I'm Eric Berg, father of 2 Boston Public Schools graduates, 25-year elementary teacher, 2nd grade teacher on leave from Boston Public Schools, and currently president of Boston Teachers Union. And I'd just like to say this morning, we're very proud of the agreement we reached. We really appreciate the hard work of both our team and the school department's team, the support of the mayor's office throughout the negotiating process. We are happy to say that we've agreed on a contract earlier in the year than at any time in the last 25 years at least, and possibly significantly longer than that. I think it's still, took too long by our estimate, and we wish it were done earlier, but we're happy that it was done as early as it was. And we do urge you to vote in favor of funding this contract at your meeting later this afternoon. So this contract agreement will stabilize staffing in our schools, and we believe it will reduce vacancies. We think that many of the issues in our schools are often, the foundation of them is due to vacancies or staff who are not present. We think that the wage increase, particularly for our paraprofessionals and ABA specialists, will both better support our students with disabilities and encourage employees to stay in those roles for a longer time. This agreement ends the practice of teachers, permanent teachers, losing their position if they don't get a special ed license. It's really not fair to kids, it's not fair to teachers, and this will put an end to that practice. We are hopeful that teachers will be less overwhelmed trying to do 2 jobs at once alone without support. Again, it's not perfect, and we appreciate your questions, because many of the questions that the counselors are asking this morning are the same questions that we remain asking. But there are going to be supports in place that are going to, we think, help both teachers and paras try to do their jobs and help students, particularly those with disabilities and multilingual learners, be more successful. Teachers and other employees will now be informed of their hours of work and rate of pay on the first day of work, which was not always the case, to reduce uncertainty and disputes over pay. There's an expansion of tuition reimbursement for teachers. There's going to be more staff, particularly in our inclusion programs, and more supports for students with disabilities in general education classrooms. At the same time, we know there's much work left to be done. We in the BTU will continue to work with the school department where there's common ground, from our community hub schools, which are an exciting initiative which is really helping in 20 of our schools, to the educator supports program, to securing state funding for Boston Public Schools, to supporting our immigrant students and their families, and staving off threats to public education from the federal government. And at the same time, we will continue to push for solutions to the challenges our schools continue to face, including better staffing for students with disabilities, better program opportunities for our multilingual learners, including dual language programs, improved school buildings and more new facilities on an expedited schedule, and staffing levels and clear protocols that allow everyone to be safe, students and educators, when learning and teaching is disrupted with unsafe incidents. And of course, we'll be working to ensure that the provisions of this agreement are implemented promptly. So again, we're really happy and proud of this agreement, and we think it will improve our schools, and we urge you to vote to fund it this afternoon. Thanks.
Thank you for your testimony, and thank you for your continued advocacy for our teachers here in the city of Boston. I would also like to recognize that Councilor Coletta Zapata has joined us. Councilor Braden, just because Councilor Coletta Zapata hasn't had a first round yet, I will give Councilor Coletta Zapata the floor. Councilor Coletta Zapata, the floor is now yours.
Thank you, Chair, and I apologize. My name was not listed, and so I rightly so was not promoted as panelist when I came in, but I've been listening in. A lot of my questions mirrored yours and Councilor Weber's, and so I don't want to be duplicative, but just say that I look forward to supporting this contract up at our hearing today, and just want to thank members of the BTU, staff of BPS for putting together this agreement. There's many things in here that were long overdue, parity. There's also the climate justice curriculum provision in here as well. So just want to give kudos to everybody, and that just leave it at that. I look forward to voting in support of this afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. The chair recognizes Councilor Braden. Councilor, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And we had some outreach from some public health nurses who work in BPS, and they are paid much less than BTU nurses. So I just wanted to flag that as something that seems unjust, and hoping that we could maybe do something to give them parity in salary with their colleagues in the schools. They're nurse practitioners and RNs who are working in the schools, and they're paid much less than the BTU nurses. So I just wanted to flag that as an issue that's come across our desk in the last few weeks. So, and I know that they're employed by the Boston Public Health Commission, but it seems unfair that they're actually in the same workplace and earning less. So I hope that we could maybe find a way to address that issue.
Councillor, if I may, very familiar with that issue, have been working really hard for 2 years to settle that contract. We haven't had success yet, but we're still plugging away. There's an offer in front of the union right now that we consider to be attractive, and that we hope they accept. So we're well attuned to that issue and trying very hard to solve it.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Lou. Appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Chair. That was the only issue I had.
Thank you, Councillor. Last two questions from me. All teachers are moving to a 26 pay check cycle. How many were still on a 22 pay check cycle? And there also is 2 more early release days added through this contract. Do we know what those days will be in FY26?
I believe the number was around 30 teachers, 30 staff who were still on paid, sort of in the 30 to 50 staff range who were still on 22 paychecks. The vast majority of staff were on 26 paychecks. And then as far as early release,
one of the days is the day before Thanksgiving, and the other one I think is still to be planned.
Thank you. Again, thank you to the panelists, everyone here who helped come to this point for the CBA. Looking forward to passing it. I want to thank my council colleagues, IGR, central staff, and also my team, and everyone who came to testify today. And the hearing on docket number 0940 through 0941 is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.